Back on the air, and this is On the Record, the O'Brien and Levine hosts for the week for radio entrepreneurs, as we're specializing and focusing on litigation and the law in the Boston area. My co-host for the day and for the week is Mark Z from Mark Z Legal Staffing. Welcome back, Mark.
Jeff, great to be with you. Great to continue to talk to some of Boston and the nation's best litigators.
Wow, that sounds good. Well, I know you're a big fan of our next guest. She'd been on the show. It was a few years ago. You just reminded me before. It's Juliet Davison of Davison Law, and we're going to talk about how unique your practice is, because you're sort of unique to the law, because you're an entrepreneur as well.
I am. That's right. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here this morning,
Thank
Jeff
you.
and Mark. And yeah, our practice is it's unique in a lot of ways, but I would say primarily, I have a background at large firms, so the large firm training, and then spent many years at a civil litigation trial boutique, but have sort of cast out on my own 8 years ago with Davison Law here in Boston, taking all the lessons that I learned in 20 years of practice and bringing them to a smaller environment where I felt that I could use that training and be maybe a bit more nimble, more flexible, and really do exactly the kind of cases that I wanted to do. And it's been a treat. And one of the best features, I think, of the practice is the breadth of people that walk in the door, because we're small and not specialized in the way that there's so much pressure on lawyers these days to be specialized in a particular area. We get a diverse client base, and so if a client has a family dispute issue or a family business issue, we get a lot of those kinds of cases. Employment type cases, lots of those. Did you want to ask me a
Yeah,
question?
what I was going to say is...
Mark always has a question.
I always do, especially...
You can see when his hand's twitching.
That's what
I always-
it's like a cat's tail.
when you get a star guest like this. But what I was going to say, what's interesting about you is somebody, you not only have a diverse practice, but somebody who can come in and see you, especially for our audience who are huge businesses. As you said, you've worked for a national firm, probably the largest firm in the world, Skadden Arps. You work for a boutique litigation firm, Todd & Weld. So you bring all that sophisticated type of background so you can work with not only sophisticated clients, but startups, and go in a lot of different directions to bring to the table, which is very unusual for somebody who's saying, okay, I have to go with this big firm. They can come in and you can still represent people at all levels.
Well, and you see a lot of millennials who go straight from law school into private practice. They've never worked at a law firm. You've worked at blue chip firms.
It's true.
What
I worry about those. I mean, I'm all for entrepreneurial, and I think it's terrific, and I think that a lot of lawyers would be a lot happier if they did what I do. But I do worry because I feel that I benefited so much from being at from being at Skadden Arps, from being at Todd & Weld, where I learned so much from fabulous lawyers. And when you're coming out of law school, that you could benefit from some of that training about how the law works, how the business world works, how the courts work, how to behave in court. So there's a very steep learning curve. So I worry a little bit for those people. I'm on the steering committee of the Boston Bar Association Solo Small Firm Committee, and so I see a lot of young lawyers coming out of school and starting on their own. They're very brave, and it's wonderful, but it's also, I'd like to try to think about ways to try to help them with mentoring and guidance, because I feel that I benefited so much for so long from older, very seasoned, very, very good lawyers.
So many questions I have, so little time.
Right.
The first question for me is about the law itself. Does it concern you with the explosion of these sort of startup law firms that aren't experienced, that the consumer doesn't know how to pick a lawyer that really knows how to handle their case properly? Or
That's
may
a good
not.
question. No, that's a good question. I haven't come across that. I mean, I'm sure there must be some of that. I am always amazed at how much traffic we get from the internet. And, you know, at this point in my practice, we have a substantial international client base. And some of that comes through the internet. And what's really interesting to me about those clients is that, I mean, there are a few, and they're from all different parts of the world, but there are a few traits that they share. One is that they really have a fundamental belief in the American justice system, that they will be treated fairly here.
Right.
And that's a really wonderful thing to see. So that I sort of see across the board. The other thing that's interesting that I've seen, and again from clients from all different parts of the world, is, you know, our legal system is held up by a sense of honesty and integrity among the lawyers. We are bound by ethical rules.
Right.
And that's not, to people from other parts of the world, that's something that sometimes can be surprising to them, or that isn't the legal system that they have been exposed to. And so, for instance, I think about in, you know, discovery, when we do discovery as lawyers in a civil litigation, we're producing documents. When there's a document request, we're producing whatever is requested, even if it's not helpful to our case, even if it's harmful.
Right.
And what I find more with the international client base is sort of a surprise that, well, why would you do that? And the answer is because these are the principles that underline our judicial system.